Okay, we're going to make a start because I'm aware your time is really precious. So I'll introduce myself and then we will crack on with our CPD time. Kerry's just jumping on the computer. Brilliant. She is here. So she's still trying to get in. She is one of our presenters today, but you're doing a great job, Kerry. I'm sure we'll manage. So I'll introduce myself. My name is Karen O'Connor. I'm the membership manager for Smart School Councils. A couple of you I have seen before, but it's so lovely to put names to faces. And it's really lovely to be able to do that with Zoom, because I think sometimes when you have other online meeting platforms and you're not able to see faces, it's quite nice to be able to put a name to a member's face. So it's great to see you all. So thank you for joining us. I come from a teaching background myself. So I taught for 15 years in primary schools in Yorkshire and joined Smart School Council last year. And really excited to be part of the team because I led on things like PSHE, philosophy for children, and school councils, things like that would raise people's voice. So the opportunity to work for a charity that helps to raise people's voice is really exciting. So welcome to today's CPD. It's our first member-led CPD. We have a few members who are going to be sharing some of their ideas about engaging Key Stage 1 voices with the class meeting tool. It's a direction that we're really excited about because we believe as a charity that really the experts are you guys. The experts are the members who are using the tool day in, day out, the members who are in the programme week in, week out. And we are really privileged because we are in a position where we hear a lot from members about the great work that's going on, the great ideas. So this is a space and a way to try and start sharing that fantastic practice that's going on and helping us learn from each other as well. So we'll jump into our CPD. And I've seen a few people have posted their ideas about what they're hoping to get from today's CPD, but it seems to be a bit of a common theme about getting people involved, even those youngest voices. So I think we're starting from a good, strong objective here. So our first member is Davinder, and Davinder couldn't be here today. And she was very, very upset about it, but she shared some great ideas from what she uses at her school. Her details and the other member details are at the top of these slides because all of them are really willing for you to reach out to them, or if you want to link up with them and ask them further questions after the CPD, please feel free. And that's the great thing about our members, is that they are very, very keen to help out and to link up. So Davinder is based in Bradford, in West Yorkshire. She's been on the programme for a few years. This is her third year in the programme. A prolific user of class meetings, and I think she's had 21 so far this year. So she's got a lot of experience with using the class meetings. 2 form entry, just over 400 pupils at Shibden Head Primary. And her main message was about making it visual and making it somewhere in school to kind of engage a whole school discussion. So let's have a look at what she says. And so basically she says each week, without fail, she sets a class meeting every single morning and often gets nudged if she forgets. But one thing I thought was a really good idea that she does is she displays the questions on large screens in a hall and gym every day as a prompt. Now, I know when I was teaching, we used to have like a large TV screen that was in the office area. And there was always another one as well down in the reception children area. So I know some of our members do show the questions on multiple screens so that every time the children pass it, they can see the questions that are being discussed that week or for that time during their class meeting. What I really love about it as well, which is something that I never did, I think actually it's a really good idea, is because they display it during lunchtime in the actual lunch hall, it involves all the adults in school with the discussion. So then you get the youngest children and the oldest children who are sitting talking with lunchtime supervisors, with the cooks, with the play workers, with the dinner ladies, and it promotes that whole school discussion. And I think that's a really interesting way of involving all the voices, including those very, very youngest who might need that extra time to chat with adults or to chat with children of different ages as well as just their own, to really get that deep understanding of what's being asked in the class meeting, and further opportunity for debating as well. She says the school particularly love the competition element. So she always encourages in those class meetings to see which classes can actually get their answers in first. And something that comes up in all of our member feedback is getting the children involved as class meeting leaders by touching the interactive whiteboard and using, being the teacher, being a time teacher really helps those youngest voices especially to get more engaged in what these class meetings actually are. So her main top tips for all the rest of our members is just about persevering, trying to make it fun, but involving as many different school voices as you can to make it almost a whole school kind of discussion. And that's something totally that I will take away from today. It's a really, really good tip about being able to get all different adults and all different children kind of chatting about it, not just in the class meeting time, but actually in their free time and actually talking to each other about their views and their opinions and really raising that pupil voice. And the idea of kind of wandering through wandering through the lunch hall at lunchtime and hearing children talking about the debate or what the question is in the class meeting, I think is a really powerful one to actually have. So yeah, they're Davinder's ideas. And again, she just said she wished she could have been here, and it was just, she couldn't get out of it. But yeah, thank you, Davinder, for sharing your wonderful member suggestions with us. So next, we've got Ellie Henery. So Ellie's here today. Let's see if she's there.
Hiya, thank you.
Hi. So yeah, Ellie, you didn't know whether you wanted to take 5 minutes to introduce yourself and explain.
Yeah, I will. Hi, I'm Ellie. I work at Willington Prep School. It is a small independent school in Wimbledon. And I think using this wonderful tool for your school council is probably the best thing actually that I've ever introduced into the school, and mainly because sometimes school council is something that people don't really understand what to do, haven't got time, or just can't fit it in, and it's hard to find something that goes right down from reception all the way through to year 6, and we've got nursery as well who do it as well. So it is a really useful tool. I would also just say that if you ever email Smart School Councils, they do get back to you straight away, so they are great for communication as a company. So what's worked well with Key Stage 1 here is that we've really got to make sure that all the questions are suitable right down from reception all the way through to year 6, and that's always quite challenging. And one way that I've done it is quite often manipulating it to kind of find out information. If my head's giving me a task that I need to do something towards the environment, well then we're going to have a question this week about the environment to know what I can do or what needs to be done. You also need to make sure, as with Key Stage 1, is that when you are doing it, make sure there is always a teacher there to guide them through it. So when they get to year 3, for example, in my school, the children start taking more ownership. They start typing on the computer or taking the notes themselves, whereas Key Stage 1, generally the teachers tend to do it as well. I think the other thing to remember is that you have to make this work for your school. So we are a small school, not a very big school, so we don't have all the different sub-teams as well. We just have our school council, and they effectively become our action team as well, which works in a smaller setting, and it might work that way for Key Stage 1 as well. I would also say when you do your questions, when you set your questions, where possible, always put a YouTube video in, make it as visual as possible, because the children love that, and that just helps to engage them just that little bit more. I would also, if you can, if you do newsletters or if you have a school website, try and have a section for school council, and put up the question of the week that you used and the answers, because that will encourage parents then to follow it up at home and say, oh, you know, little Johnny, you did this today. What was the outcome? What did you learn? Or, you know, whatever it was. And it just gets the conversation flowing at home about school council too. So more top tips. It is important that you try and make the whole school feel engaged. With some of when we're thinking of questions, when we can't think of anything, often we use the suggested ones, and quite often there'll be a topic that, you know what, it's not suitable for reception, so we don't do that. We try and stay, you know, on anything that's school related or anything that we feel, if it's a person, for example, well, let's make sure that reception are going to know who this person is we're talking about, and Year 6 are going to know as well. I also go into assembly every week before we set the question and send it out, and just remind them who their school council is, remind them that we're going to send you a question and it's based on perhaps a theme, and also remind them just to give sensible answers and realistic answers as well. Never make any promises, because as you know, children will always hold you to whatever you say. So don't promise that you've got, you know, a massive budget and you're going to. One of the things we did, we asked if they wanted. They used to have a tuck shop. We said, oh, would you like our tuck shop back, a healthy tuck shop? And as soon as you mention this tuck shop, well, every day they say, when's the tuck shop? When's the tuck shop? So don't make any promises. You'll just say to them that you're getting your ideas and we're listening to you, and we're seeing what we can do for you. So like I said, mention it in assemblies and anywhere around the school where possible. I've also found that it is a massively amazing tool for any kind of evidence for Ofsted or for inspection as well. And they are really hot on this voice of the school. What do the children think? Having this voting system, it's a really amazing piece of evidence to use. And like I said, choose your questions around what it is that you want to promote, or your focus of the school. For example, we wanted to focus on having something towards being an eco school. So we set up a plant growing competition, and we got their thoughts to start with. Our question was, how would you feel about having a plant in your classroom? And of course, everyone goes, yeah, a plant. So then we set it up as a competition. So our action was to give every class a plant and look after it, and the head teacher would come around and judge it at the end of term to see who had looked after their plant the best. And actually that was a competition in itself. It was a way to get the head teacher involved, it was a way to get the staff involved, it was a way to get the children talking about this plant in their room, and it was just a lovely sense of community that was created by having one question. What else? In terms of getting the staff engaged, yes, mention it in assembly, but also if you have staff meetings, just mention it there as well. As long as you keep banging on about school council and, you know, listening to the child. And I found, probably shouldn't say this, but with my head teacher, when he said, well, hang on, you want to put goalposts up in the playground, well, why? So I'll say, well, because that's what the children want, that's what they've asked for, and by the way, here is my evidence because I've asked them. So it's a really useful tool to back up anything that you want to implement into your school as well. Some of the questions that we put out were, what is your preferred way of fundraising? So did they want a cake sale? Did they want a mufti day? Did they want whatever it was? And actually, instead of school council do it, we then passed that over to our PTA, our parent group, and said, oh, the children would like this. Would you like to organise it? You know, and then they take over the work for it as well. Another one was being COVID safe. And that was a really important one, because then we could go back to parents and say, oh, the children have said they do feel safe at the moment because we're doing hand sanitizer or whatever it was that was going on during lockdown as well. The other one was a good one is, what activities do you enjoy most in the school? And you can put that out at Easter time, you can put that out at Christmas time, and that also kind of directs the teachers into, oh, this is what I need to plan for. My children have all come back and said that they want a cooking activity at Christmas time, therefore we better do a cooking activity. So it does help direct teachers with their planning as well. And that's it. So do make it work for your school, because it is a really great, useful tool to use.
Thank you for that, Ellie. Really great points there. It seems as well it's quite similar in the way Davinder's message about that kind of getting everybody involved in the discussion. And I love the way you're saying that you involve the families, you let them know what's happening, and kind of creating that kind of whole community discussion sounds like a really, really positive way to use the class meeting tool. And if you get some goalposts out of it, even better. So yeah, great to hear.
Yeah, someone just asked on the chat, do you run your class meetings in house groups? No, we run it in our form time. So it's a sort of a 10-minute activity that's a great fill-in, and teachers tend to find they like to do it at the same time every week. And it's sort of one of those great ones that you can do in form time, or if you've got that 20-minute break before you go home, it's quite a nice fill-in time then. But I would try and roll your question out at the same time every week, so the teachers and the children get used to it.
Thanks for that, Ellie. And I think it's right what you said before about trying to make it work to your setting. And the programme is designed to be flexible. So it's great to hear that, good idea to roll the questions out at the same time. But the fact that people can have the class advantage of the tool. Is there anyone who's got a burning question that they'd like to ask of Ellie about anything she's just raised? Yasmin, do you wanna?
Hi, Ellie. This is the first time I'm doing class meetings, so I'm still getting used to it. Everything you asked, you said that you use it. It's got good evidence for inspections. So, like, how do you save the evidence? Do you make it to a portfolio? Do you print the questions out? The results of each week? What do you do?
So what I do, I tend to take there's a thing on my laptop called Snip. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, Snip, and it takes basically a screenshot of your. So when we go through, when I sit down with the school council and we go through the results, I will snip that. So I will take a picture of it. And I'll either print it out or save it into a file. And also, if you're doing displays, take a picture of the display and have that up there as well. But when we had inspectors come in, they would ask about, well, how are you listening to the children? How are you getting their opinion? And you can just verbally tell them as well. But if you do put it in newsletters, you can use the newsletter physical evidence. They like that. The inspectors said to me, please tell me you don't talk about food, because that's what all school councils seem to talk about, is food and school lunches and things like that. So if you can come up with different topics in different areas, they really like that.
Yeah, we've been doing that. Thank you.
Thanks, Ellie. And a great way to kind of have that kind of visual image of the results, but you can also download, Yasmin, the results each week, but it's more like a spreadsheet. Yeah, you're nodding, you know that. Fantastic. Any other questions for Ellie, or shall we move on? Nope. Okay, right, we'll move on. So thank you, Ellie, for that. Kerry's next. Now, Kerry's had a couple of problems with her mic, so I'm crossing fingers, I'm crossing toes. I can see Kerry. I'm going to ask to unmute her. I think she might be typing something in the chat box here, so let's just see. I think she is. Let's see if she says. Oh, she's still having problems. Well, Kerry, how about I read through your results, but literally, if there's anything that you want, don't worry, you can spell. If there's anything you wanted to add to it, post it in the chat box. So I'll do my best at explaining your fantastic ideas, but like I said, please do feel free to post in the chat box as we go. So Kerry, give us a wave, Kerry, so people can see who you are. And there we go, Kerry. So that's Kerry there. So Kerry, another school who's a prolific user of the class meetings. They've had about 15 so far this year. Third year with Smart School Councils, and it's a smaller school. So Nampian Community Primary down in Cornwall, 155 people, state funded. So that hopefully it gives you an idea that the programme can work with even the smallest of schools. So Kerry, big user of social media as well. She does post on our Facebook and Twitter as well. So yes, it's great that she's really engaged in the Smart School Council community. So Kerry then, what's working well with Key Stage 1 with Kerry setting? They do it a really interesting way, and Kerry shared a video with us, and we sent the video to all people who are coming today, and I know a few people watched it. And we do have the link, so we can resend it out after this CPD. But Kerry videoed a Key Stage 1 class meeting, and it was about 10 minutes long, and it was the very youngest, the summer born Key Stage 1 children. I think it was year 1 as well. So the very, very youngest children. And what they do is absolutely fantastic. And the little simple things that sometimes you overlook, probably what I would have overlooked myself as well, when you're in that kind of busy day-to-day teacher mode. So one of the things she does is they group the whole of the class into one group. So rather than separating the children into kind of groups of 2, groups of 3, and then it kind of complicates the whole process of debating. You give your votes, debating, you give your votes, and it can get quite complicated for the youngest. They sit as a group and they have a look at the discussion together, and they chat with their talking partners next to each other. And as they vote, they then do it physically. So the children then are guided to areas of the classroom when they talk through the options. So for example, in the video, it talks about their school uniform and what school uniform they'd like to wear. And when those options are talked through, they're guided to an area. So if you want this option, then you stand here. If you want this option, you stand here. So as the children understand what their option is, they can then physically go and stand in those areas, and they can see, because we all know that young children are very visual learners. So the fact that they can look across the classroom and be able to see physically which is the most popular answer, and they can see at ease how children have voted, is so simple and such a strong idea. It's such a good idea. Also as well, Kerry says that she links with a reception teacher, and one of our other members mentioned this as well, another lady who's coming a bit later on in the CPD today, and she links with the reception teacher prior to choosing the questions, so that there's that real discussion going on. So a lot of our lead teachers are older teachers, maybe year 5 and 6 teachers. So the fact that she's linking with a reception and saying, actually, are these questions going to work, is really strong. And one thing that she says that they sometimes do, especially if we send out suggested questions that maybe have got 4 options, they'll reduce it down. So it's easier for those youngest children to choose from perhaps just 2 options rather than 4 options in itself, which I think is fab. I think Kerry just posted in the chat box. Let me just see. Still having problems. No problem. We'll keep going, Kerry. No problem. So top tips from Kerry then about getting Key Stage 1 more involved in the class meeting tool. So she mentions, again, like Ellie said, that even though our older children might be ready to lead the class meetings from the start, those adults are still going to need to really heavily facilitate those class meetings to start with. But the video that was sent from Kerry School does have the Key Stage 1 stood at the front as the leaders, but rather than them talking through the slides and explaining, the teacher is very direct with them. So she says things like, these are our options. Can you point to option 1? Can you point to option 2? Can you press the button to send it to the comms team? So they are physically still pressing the buttons and leading that meeting, but it's still heavily, heavily directed by the teacher for those youngest voices. And another thing that Kerry's school does is, again, even with youngest children, the idea of like democracy feels quite abstract. And I'm just going to jump ahead 1 slide, Kerry, just to show what I mean. I hope this is okay. So Kerry, there we go. So Kerry here, in her school, they use the words like democracy, I hear somebody just getting a little bit of feedback. If you just want to mute yourself. There we go. I've just got a little bit of microphone issues. Oh, there we go. Excellent. So yeah, Kerry's school uses words like democracy, democratic, elections, and all those sorts of big words. But actually, they use it from even the youngest children constantly, and they drip it into the class meeting itself, and they're constantly referring and explaining what it means. So when they talk about democracy, you can hear them in the video saying that we all have our opinions, and even though what we choose might not be what everybody chooses in the school, we still get our right to choose it because it's part of democracy. So yeah, I hope you were able to watch the video because it's a great video and it's well worth watching. It's like 10 minutes long. So we're not going to use the time today to share it. I know we sent it out beforehand and we'll send it out again after this CPD, but there's some really, really strong points about getting those youngest children involved in the class meeting sessions. Now, I know Kerry can't quite speak at the moment, but perhaps you could help by typing answers if anyone has any questions and how she uses the class meeting to go with those youngest voices. But just see if anyone has any questions for Kerry. Okay. Not at the moment, so we'll pause that there. So what we're going to do now is there are a couple of people who have asked questions, and we have another member, Amanda, who's going to join us in a moment. So we're going to go into, actually, let's just see. And if you want to unmute yourself, Amanda. There we go. And this is Amanda from Ladywood Primary.
Okay, so basically what works well for us, we found, in general, is the consistency. They need to know when the questions needs to be done by, and we've become really rigid on that. It was starting to go a little bit, we noticed that it wasn't getting done unless we had that routine to stick to that, otherwise people tend just to forget to do it. Making sure get the feedback of what they're voted on. We're tweaking that slightly at the moment. We're going to do a weekly dojo to parents and also something in the newsletter, so they do get to see how they voted, but they don't always get to see they're not always immediate. So something like working on the safety of the toilets, they won't get to see that for a while, but voting on what to do on children in need, they saw it that same week. So definitely making sure we feed back to them. So they think they're just as much part of it as the year six. Just lots of discussion with them as well, so they know what it is that we're doing. Allocating roles, so I can't believe our year 5, 6s, how they've taken to this. It's unbelievable, it really is. And they're going to go down and train the Key Stage 1 or help them deliver in the classroom as well. So they've not just been given a title and a lanyard, they've actually got a job to do. Make sure their voices are heard, because otherwise why are we doing any of this? Link what we can to their curriculum, what they're learning to, if necessary, and ask the staff as well for their suggestions, because I will have to admit, I'm sorry, Karen, but we've only used one of the suggested questions, the 5 suggested, we've only ever used it once, and we used it as a test. So every week we've adapted ours to fit the whole school and what's going on at the time. So we make sure 1 week we'll have, we have a wellbeing and mental health, and that action is then passed on to our anti-stigma ambassadors. We'll have an eco question that we send to the eco warriors. It could be an online safety that'll go to the IVADers, I think they're called. But we've always got a team somewhere to pass it on to action. So we don't have any action teams as such, because it could be our business manager who needs to address it. But we've got 7 ambassadors in Key Stage 2, and Upper Key Stage 2, 3 in Lower, and they don't do as much. They run the class meeting, but when they go up a year, they'll take on more responsibility. So it's our 5s and 6 that are going to lots of events, to be quite frank, at the minute, and presenting to a cabinet minister.
That's very impressive, Amanda. I know you do so much with your school council, and I particularly love the mention of taking like the older children down to the youngest to help them.
Sorry, I've just got a typical cough, haven't I? Just when I don't want it.
Not to worry. And I think as well, you make a good point about, you've not used many of our questions because, keeping it very specific to your setting is great. And as a charity, we recognise that, recently we've introduced the take it easy style questions. So each week we have one.
I like those.
That's kind of aimed towards the younger children.
Ideally, we'd love to be able to have 2 questions a week for the different, if needs be, for the different key stages. Some weeks it's fine, it fits across the whole school, but it would be nice if they're doing something quite specific to be able to get their feedback for those. So that would be the dream, is to be able to set 2 questions. Please.
Brilliant. And it's definitely something that we have taken from our members and something that we are seeing, thinking about future software updates, seeing what's possible, but we value all our member feedback, so I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Amanda.
It's just the best format. October, we've only been doing it since October, and it runs itself. It's really impressive. I'm selling it left, right and centre to other schools.
And does anyone have any questions for Amanda and what she's talked about?
Please say no.
I know, like I said at the beginning, hopefully people have, even if there's one thing that you think, I'll take that away. That's one thing I can do to help engage Key Stage 1 voices with the class meeting too, because coming to meetings and feeling like there's so much that you don't even know where to start can sometimes feel quite overwhelming. So hopefully you feel like there's at least one thing that you can take away from today's CPD. So feel free if you'd like to share that in the chat box, or if you want to unmute yourself and just say, one thing that you'd like to take away, one thing you've learned, one thing you think, I'm gonna try that with my Key Stage 1 voices. You can do that as well. So I'll just give people a couple of minutes in case you wanted to post in the chat box, or whether you prefer to unmute yourself and talk.
I'm quite happy to, our team have put a PowerPoint presentation together of what they do. I'm quite happy to share that with anybody if they wanted to adapt it for their school, if they need to give a present, because ours have already presented to governors. They've presented to the safeguarding leads for the trust, and they were supposed to deliver to Maggie Throop, MP, but there was a COVID crisis, so she's coming again hopefully in a few weeks if they're not having parties, and they use that to deliver it. So I'm quite happy to share that.
I'd love that. Thank you.
And perhaps, because we mentioned just before you came, Amanda, about everyone's contact details being on there, and people were happy to share those. So perhaps in the follow-up email after the CPD, could I put your details on there as well?
Absolutely, yeah, of course.
Kerry said here, Kerry's taken away something from today. Kerry has said, oh, I've lost it now. There we go, Kerry. So Kerry is going to take away the idea of writing the questions on the hall interactive whiteboard. It was a previous school just before you came in, Amanda, of a school who always has them displayed on the whiteboard and encourages like lunchtime supervisor chat, dinner chats, cooks, play workers to all be talking about what's going on in the class meeting question. Yasmin says, are you able to print past question results? You can do if you download. Do you mean the ones that you've asked yourself previously? Yeah. So if you download, remember I talked before on your dashboard, when you log into the class meeting tool, you can download them and it comes out like a CSV file, a bit like a spreadsheet. It's not very visual, but it still enables you to print past questions. Kerry's also said she's She's also going to put the class meeting question on newsletters. I know another school mentioned that they include their class meetings on newsletters to encourage community and family debate at home, which is a fantastic idea. And Anne said, I love the idea of the question being posted in the hall at lunchtime. So I think Anne might be taking that away from today and keeping it nice and visual in the lunch hall as well. So I'm aware of how precious your time is. I want to say a huge thank you to everyone for coming in, especially our member presenters for today. It's a direction we would definitely like to keep moving in and sharing the fantastic member experts who have that experience of using the programme and sharing that great practice with each other. So in a follow-up email to this, I'll make sure I include the contact details of our member presenters in case you wanted to reach out to them. I'll include the link again for the video that Kerry took of her Key Stage 1 children. And I'll also do a really short survey, about 5 questions, just to ask you, how did this CPD go today? And what would you like to have moving forwards? So unless there's no more questions, I'm going to stop talking. Give people a couple of minutes to leave. If anyone wants to stop and have a chat with me before they go, I'm going to be here for the next 5 minutes. So I'll say goodbye to those people leaving now.
Thank
and
you.
I'll hand on to those people who want to chat with us. You're welcome. Bye-bye.